Ask you about stigma in mental health, especially so here say at the event, with black mental health is obviously an awful lot of stigma there, or there can be. How the important thing is to fight this, and what the best ways that the government is trying to do?
Well, stigma is being addressed. I think we've come a long way over the last couple of years, but the majority of the journey is some way ahead of us. So we've got to raise it up the political agenda, which I think we have done. We're having debates in the House of Commons, we have this amazing session here today, so it is going up the political agenda. We need to create political will. But I also, from my own experiences and travels, get the impression that people are more comfortable now talking about their own mental health issues. And that is a really good start to build on. But I think with the BME community, when we talk about stigma, I think we must underplay that there are levels of discrimination as well. And I got into politics to tackle discrimination. I co-sponsored Gavin Barwell's bill to end discrimination in a number of areas, such as jury service, serving on company boards, and I want to continue that work.
Yeah, and you say you want to continue. What form will that take? What are you looking to do? What are the plans or the emotional plans?
Well, luckily I've got an answer to that, because one thing I'm really keen to do is try and improve the levels in my own small way of employment amongst people with mental health problems. The Work Foundation's done a lot of work in this area. They published a report a few months ago, and if you have a diagnosis of psychosis and schizophrenia, the chances of being unemployed are about 93%, so you've got a 7% chance of being in work. More generally, if you have a mental health problem and you leave the labour market, it's harder and harder to get back in, and the more remote you are from the labour market, it tends to be the case that the earlier you get. So we've got to address employment issues, and I think that's going to be one of my two crusades for the years ahead, or however long I'm allowed to remain in Parliament by my constituents. And the other one is black mental health. I have been working with Matilda Cattram, who organised this conference today, for a number of years. I've read into the situation in advance of me speaking here later today, and I'm just appalled that if you are a black male, I've always known this, but I didn't know the scale of it, you had a high chance of being detained, you had a high chance, it seems, of having face-down restraint, and actually it seems you have a much higher chance of dying while you're in the care of the authorities, and that is unacceptable.
You say there are MPs such as yourself, Gavin Barwell, Norman Lamb, who are really trying to make a difference.
There's a group now around mental health. Mental health isn't going away. Politicians didn't want to talk about it. They felt uncomfortable talking about it. That's not the case anymore. There's a good group of people from across the House of Commons who are talking about it.
Now, why am I involved in mental health? Well, traditionally, mental health has been an area that politicians have skated around. It's made them feel very nervous, mental health. That's because society has been nervous about mental health. For hundreds of years, we've marginalised people. We've had Bedlam, where people were locked away and locked up. The Shadow Minister was absolutely right. There is discrimination throughout this piece. People with mental health, regardless of race, creed or colour, are discriminated against. If you have a diagnosis of psychosis or schizophrenia, your life expectancy is reduced by 20 years. And it's reduced by 20 years because society really just wants you to behave yourself. It doesn't want you to embarrass them, so they give you lots of drugs, they let you smoke lots of cigarettes because your physical health isn't that important as long as you're not making a nuisance of yourself, and hey presto, you die in your late 50s. And actually we've got to put the patient at the centre of care, and it's just not acceptable in a modern society that people are dying 20 years younger with a diagnosis of schizophrenia than without it. Restraint, people being restrained. Well, Mind did some research. There were 3,439 cases of face-down restraint in 47 mental health trusts that reported, and half of those were in 2 mental health trusts. Now, there's something wrong with these figures. Either 2 mental health trusts are doing something incredibly wrong, or the other 45 are not reporting properly. But I would say the truth is somewhere in between. But we do know that if you're a black male, you are more likely to be restrained face down, you're more likely to lose your liberty, and sadly, while we're here today, you're more likely to die, and that is unacceptable. Just close on a couple of thoughts. Care in the community is a great idea if the care exists. I don't want to see people locked away in asylums. I do appreciate the fact, though, that sometimes we do need to keep hospitals open with beds, because people are so desperate for help. They need to be there, and these hospitals need to be places of wellness. They need to be humane. People need to be treated with dignity. We need advocacy. If you're arrested for suspicion of a crime, you get a lawyer. If you're going to lose your liberty for a mental health problem, you still struggle 4 years after you were meant to have guaranteed advocacy to find an advocate. That is not acceptable. And we need crisis plans. So when people are in crisis and they can't speak for themselves, those that care for them can respect their wishes and the wishes of their families. And we need compassion and understanding. There's nothing wrong with compassion and understanding. I was saying to one of your colleagues, trouble is, the fact is, when you say I've got cancer, people give you a shoulder to lean on. Too often, still the case, when you have a mental health problem, people give you a cold shoulder. They move away from you, not towards you. And we need to get better at moving towards people. Being mentally ill isn't a crime, it's an illness. Many people overcome that illness, some people learn to live with it, but it's not a crime. And actually, today isn't about what the Conservative Party is going to do, what the other political parties are going to do. It's about human rights, it's about civil rights, and it's about justice.